Welcome to a new program called By the Numbers. Now, this particular program is going to focus on a major issue that resonates with town officials in both communities, Whitman and Hanson, homeowners, parents, educators, and in the event by many that, the debates that break out on social media frequently, budgets. Not just municipal budgets, mind you. We'll talk different department budgets, whether it's the schools, the police, and we'll also talk on other levels as well. County budgets, even the state budget, as you know, rounds into form right at the end of June, signed into law sometime in early July, depending on the administration, of course, that is up at the State House. But the mission of the program itself is to sit down with local stakeholders and get their thoughts and concerns on the town's financial picture and gain a perspective on the process. And now today's guest, he is a well-known Hanson resident. He did grow up in Whitman, though, and is a business owner and a long-serving school committee member, currently serving as its chair. We have Mr. Bob Hayes. Mr. Hayes. Kevin? Welcome to By the Numbers. I think we start out by getting an idea as to why you decided to become a member of the school committee, maybe any other boards that you've served on in the past.
Kevin, I think it's not so much why, it's just I've served on many different boards in the district, or whether it be many different boards in the town of Hanson, and the opportunity came up to serve, and it was many, many years ago, and there are many different problems facing the towns, and then not a ton of it's changed, but it's 16 years moving forward, and so I don't think it's a why or anybody pushed me. I was just there and said, I think I'll get involved, rather than sit and contemplate or complain, and I'm not using that as a negative term, even though it sounds that way. I said, I'll get involved and see what's involved in it, and off it went.
When it comes to the budget process or handling the school district's finances, is that the difficult part of serving on the committee, or is it not that simple?
Well, that's kind of a two-pronged question, Kevin. It's definitely not that simple. It's probably one of the hardest things that a school committee member can do is when it gets to budget time, because budget is always the most difficult time of the year. It used to be that the governor's budget would come out in February-ish, and it would make schools across the Commonwealth much easier to figure their budget out. But as the Commonwealth has dragged their feet, so to speak, on the budget, and they have all kinds of input, and it doesn't come out till June, school committees don't have that opportunity because of town meeting. We have to present a budget 45 days prior to town meeting on what the two towns are going to be assessed for the school. And there's a big difference between what town assessments are or what percentage of increase is to the taxpayer.
Okay. It's interesting. I'm not somebody who's privy to Hanson Town Meeting, but I know that usually in Whitman for the past few years, one of the things that is almost like a disclaimer is to let residents know that, again, it was a difficult budget cycle, and that the wants and the needs, the budgets, the financial the responsibilities of the town financially were far exceeding what the revenue was that was brought in. You can tell me whether or not that's something that's also said in Hanson, and if you feel, in fact, it's a true statement when it's made.
Well, it's a two-pronged effect, because you have two towns here, and the finances of each town changes with the needs of the town, with what they need municipally, for the municipalities, what they need for police station. As you know, both towns have built new police stations, and they were more than needed. Mm-hmm. Both towns needed police stations. Both towns are at the particular point that they're trying to do highway departments. They both need highway departments. So the budget every year is difficult because it falls on the back of the taxpayer. And as we move forward in life, as you can see, people talk about assessments on their house. They talk about taxes going up. They compared these towns to other towns in the Commonwealth that are close. Some people don't declare it with the same furor that others do. Some people look at it right to pennies.
Sure.
But Whitman and Hanson are both bedroom communities, and we don't have the opportunities of Hanover with the Hanover Mall and access to the highway. And so the budget is on the back of the taxpayer, more or less. We have small amounts of businesses. They're both bedroom communities. I wouldn't want to live anywhere else in the towns of Whitman and Hanson. As you know, I've been here both times. I own businesses in other communities that are close, and they're beautiful places to live. But the costs are going up.
You touched upon my next question, and it is, you are a successful business owner. When a community is having financial problems, does that affect business for you? And other businesses or I'm sure you have conversations with other local business owners. I mean, what's the consensus?
Well, anytime that taxes are increased, things go up. There are people on fixed incomes that it definitely affects. And when you affect people having free spending cash, it obviously affects local restaurants, pizzas, sub shops, barbers. People start putting things off that they can't afford. It's a very unfortunate part of this particular system. But the funding from the state, the way it comes down to fund school districts, is difficult also. So it's a balancing act. If you want services, it comes at a cost.
Okay. At this moment, one of the two towns in the district is admittedly, openly, has said that there are financial problems, that there's going to be a sizable deficit for the 2020 budget. Do you think officials are doing enough to tackle the particular issue and also being transparent with the public about the issue?
Well, I think it's a very difficult place to be because it's happened in both towns. It's not unique to the one town that you're talking about. There comes times when each town has its own financial burdens that, this particular town will be paying off a project, this particular town will be taking on a new one. So I think that is kind of a seesaw effect. It goes back and forth to both towns. There's really no one to blame. Are the officials doing what they can? They're doing everything that they can. I mean, both towns have a government where we have town administrators, where we have boards of selectmen, where we have town meeting type voting. Part of the issue is town meeting itself is probably the most pure way of doing things, but part of the problem is when you have 6,000 to 10,000 voters through each town, and you have 120 people come to town meeting or 115, or if it's a town meeting that doesn't have any real giant items coming up, we have troubles getting quorums. I mean, we'll be looking and the town moderator will say, we've got 80, get up people, and we'll all run outside and start on our phones and start calling everybody saying, let's get a quorum so we can vote on town things. So town meeting has become difficult because years ago, I think people tend to get, and I'm not picking on them, life is busy. Busy time. And I think people don't get involved as much as they used to.
And I was going to ask you that because you're somebody who, you volunteer a lot of your time, not necessarily just for the schools or for town government, but you are involved in a lot of other different, whether it's youth projects or youth programs, anything that's going on in town, especially if there's a holiday event, you're involved. Bob Hayes is there, and there are other like-minded folks who are there with you. And you talk about that you have such a small, it seems as though it's a struggle. Community can have between 6,000 and 10,000 registered voters, but yet you have a mere fraction who will show up at town meeting unless, in fact, there's a need to expand line item number 2 if it has to do with a particular department or two. How do you feel as somebody who is an active volunteer and not seeing the volunteerism as high as it once was, and understanding, as you said in your last statement, that people are busy?
Well, I think part of that again is a double-edged sword. Part of the problem is volunteerism has fallen off maybe a little bit because everybody's busy. Your life has changed from what it used to be. But the second part, I think, is social media has played such a big part in thwarting volunteerism, because people don't want to be criticized for volunteering their time for free by someone who can just sit at a keyboard and throw rocks without doing all of the background information. And I think that's some of the biggest things when you talk to other people from other towns. And communities, I mean, we deal on a school committee basis, we deal with people in Greenfield that are on other school committees. We all sit and brainstorm and try to figure out, how to best help our communities, because we're all volunteers. And most of the people all say the same thing. Social media has got that keyboard warrior aspect in it where people
With
throw
social
rocks.
media.
Right.
Yep.
So as good as everything has come around with the computers and everything has come around with cell phones, it's hurt communities in several ways. And one of them is that way. Another way is tremendous amount of people don't shop local because you can get it on the internet delivered to your door. If you looked, I mean, how many people, these delivery businesses are growing in leaps and bounds, Amazons or any of them, because it gets delivered to the door and people don't have to go shopping. Not only is it cheaper, but they get a better timeline for their children or for older people that are taking care of grandparents or whatever. They get more family time by not running to Walmart. They just order it online. It comes, it gets delivered, and it's cheaper. It's the American way.
At least it is today.
Yeah.
If you want to go online on the interwebs and order something off of Amazon, which, who knows? Soon we'll probably have drones dropping things off at our doors.
That's what they're talking about.
They're talking about this particular time. I want to take a moment to get into your area of expertise. And again, this particular program is meant to be an educational tool to the folks who are sitting at home who may not know the finer details in regards to budgeting and numbers and how things get done and how certain phrases and terminologies. We know that the school district, any school district, usually takes up a large portion of a municipality's budget. That's how it works. I know as of the past couple of budget cycles here in the Whitman Hanson Regional School District, the annual assessment to the town has seen its increases. Is enough being done to inform the taxpayers about the district's growing needs? And do folks understand what the assessment is, the annual assessment to each town?
Well, I think, Kevin, enough is maybe not being done because it's the old adage that has been around for years and years and years. If you want to see what's there, you have to go and look. It's put on social media, it's put on programs such as this. We have school committee meetings, we invite people to come, we have open budgetary meetings, and we invite people to come, and again, only a handful of people come. And then when the budget comes out, there becomes, wow, how did that get like it is? And we show it at meetings. These are open meetings, and I've said many, many times, Kevin, as you've seen, you've been there, please come, please be informed, because it's their dollars and cents. They're really, the people that are voting for the budgets are really the ones dictating what type of education you're going to get out of a school district, what you want. In the same way, they're doing the same thing at town meeting, voting on what type of town you want to be, what type of service you want to perform. And services are costing more. Health insurance, as we know, is going up.
Yep,
We just had a recent budget meeting, and the light bill for the school district is close to $1 million a year. Mm. When a person mows their lawn, they've got a lawnmower, and they go out and they mow a small portion of the lawn. We mow over 1 million square feet of fields and lawns. So everything, it's not even relative in cost. When the light bill goes up for a homeowner that it's $150 a month, it goes up $15. When you have $1 million light bill, it doesn't go up $15. Mm. When it goes up 10%, it goes up $100,000. If it goes up 15%, it goes up $150,000. So it's a big jump. It's a big number. And I don't blame people for being scared. Those are big, big numbers when they come in. So the increase of 2.5% under Prop 2.5 isn't keeping up with the increases in what's going on at the school district.
Do you think it's time to modify Prop 2.5? Because I know it was a big thing back in the day, and there were folks on both sides in regards to when tax reform was signed into law in the early 80s. Is it time to modify Prop 2.5? Maybe do a Prop 3.5?
I'm not sure if modifying Prop 2.5 is time to do it, but I think when special projects come up that need to be voted at town meeting, I think that is how you do it, because Prop 2.5 was put in place to keep it so the taxes could only be raised 2.5%. But when you have rising costs and what's going on in building projects and municipal things that need to be done, and it's going over 2.5, then that becomes the problem. Because there's no way you can just say, well, we're going to raise more dollars unless you up taxes. And let's face it, nobody wants taxes raised.
Right, and I don't think people understand. A lot of times, people will point the finger at certain officials who may comment in regards to taxes or in regards to certain budgetary items without understanding that they too are a taxpayer, somebody who pays taxes in the community. So if by saying, hey, we should do a Prop 2.5 override for this reason or for that reason, they're not just looking to raise everybody's taxes, but they're looking to they're going to be raising their own as well, correct?
Correct. Everybody pays. When the taxes go up, everybody pays. The officials, we hear this word lots about transparency, about transparent budgets. We have auditing companies that are independently done. The federal government makes you do these things because there's federal money and there's state money, and they want to make sure it's being spent properly. In fact, the last school committee, we had the auditing company come in, and we got a clean audit saying that our practices and how we're handling it is being done, and they check every single thing. So people sometimes say, because as you know, I'll get something from social media saying they need to be audited. We're audited all the time.
It's good that you mentioned that, because there are, from time to time, you hear and see people vilify a school district for not being forthcoming because they don't do like at a town meeting where you see all 400 or 500 line items that are part of an article. And they will accuse the school district of being lacking transparency. Refute that.
Okay, you have 10 people on the particular Whitman Hanson Regional School Committee that are voting on a multifaceted budget. So if you broke it out, what would we might say? Okay, let's not heat this school because it costs too much, but let's heat that school, because you have to break it out into thousands of lines.
Right.
It is broken out at a budget meeting with about a 50 or 60 page book to read, and then when you get to town meeting, it's voted as a lump sum. But all of those salaries or any of the OPEB, which is others post-employment benefits, is all right in the town warrant. If anyone wants to see exactly what it is, exactly what an individual is paid, it is printed in the town warrant, exactly to the numbers. But it's a very extensive process on a $53 million budget that federal money comes to, state money comes to, and town money comes to. It's a little bit difficult. It's kind of like you'll have someone say, well, we have police, fire, DPW. All of those services are very, very important to townspeople, but they all have different things that they do. And a school budget has mandates, mandated by federal government and state government, saying we have to do things this way. And in the Whitman Hanson Regional School District, it runs between $8 to $10 million.
Funded and unfunded?
I'm going to get to that part.
I think you would.
Right, exactly. Right now, we have $5 million worth of unfunded mandates. If the state and the federal government stepped up and funded the unfunded mandates, the Whitman Hanson Regional School District wouldn't be looking for assessments to the town whatsoever. We would be fine. But they don't fund things that they say we have to do. Whether it's regional transportation, there's a tremendous item list. In fact, we went over it at a school committee meeting recently of the non-funded mandates. And if you just looked at it, it would be way more than enough if it was just funded 100%. So it's a difficult thing to look at, and I know that people say, well, fire does this, police does. These services in these communities couldn't get any better. Police, fire, DPW, these people do the best. I mean, we recently had a snowstorm, drive down the streets. Safest two towns you'd want to live in the Commonwealth. If you call the fire department or the police department, bang, they're there. It doesn't get any better than that, but it comes at a cost. It really does.
It's interesting that the school district has made a transition from the retired school superintendent, Dr. Ruth Gilbert Whitner, to now you have Jeff Simonek. And I've heard great things as to Jeff's presentation of the FY 2020 budget. How good is that to know that folks are on board and are raving about your school superintendent, knowing that there's a changing of the guard, and that basically flawlessly he was able to kind of pick it up and go moving forward to make people comprehend what the expenditures are going to be for the next fiscal year?
I don't think it's a case of make people comprehend. I think
Help.
Help, exactly, perfectly put. I think when you change the guard and you have different people, they approach things differently. And so this year, Jeff and his assistant superintendent, George Farrell, who was also both of these two were previous principals.
Right.
They worked in the trenches in the last 10 years, because education has changed tremendously in the last 10 years. And they came with a different approach. Everybody's approach is different. And they came with a little bit different approach. And it seems to have a little bit different turn, so to speak. And maybe we're hoping and praying that people are understanding it better. And they're two guys that have brought the school district into the fact of all superintendents. I mean, I've had two superintendents previous to these two. These two, and it's not the other two weren't approachable, but these two were like on the street kind of guys, very, very approachable. They're begging people, if you have any questions about the school district, please contact us. Please, we will answer any and all questions.
And this is kind of a residual of making an in-district pick for superintendent and assistant superintendent, and it's paying dividends.
Yes, it appears that way. I mean, we had a very long process to pick a superintendent. We had people, we went to outside interviews, went to Rhode Island, went to some in-state, there were finalists. We had a fairly large committee, the screening committee, and I commend them for their work. And it was a large process. And we hired an in-house candidate.
Talk to me about the budget process. Talk to me about how intricate it is. Does it differ from year to year when you're assembling it? What is the thought process that goes into every, and is it usually start around the same time? Because I remember, I would say a year or two ago, there was a thought where there were going to be community leaders that were going to get on the same page and start the process even earlier than in December and January.
Well, we've done that over the years at different times, and in this particular year we kind of got ahead of the curve. But you can only get so far ahead of the curve because
you wait on the
state
numbers.
Government comes out with a number and it affects the regional school district huge. So you can only speculate so much of where the state's going to be, whether they're going to fund this or fund that. And again, it goes back to these mandates that are so important because it's in the $10 million range, and right now there's $5 million in unfunded mandates. And people all the time are saying this. We had one member of the school committee, let's take them on, let's take them to court, say we're not going to do it. Well, other districts have tried that and failed. And not failed miserably, but they have failed. What they're trying, the school districts are looking at more now than ever is strength in numbers. Somewhere this has got to stop because the taxpayers are going to demand it.
I want you to take the school committee hat off. I want to take the business person hat off. And I want you to tell me as a taxpayer, do you feel that your town, do you feel that these two towns have the type of leadership needed to be able to endure and solve a budget crisis?
I think both towns have tremendous leadership. They're going to agree to disagree. You're not going to get everybody 100% on the same page, and you can see that throughout state government and throughout federal government. But I think in these two towns, they work collaboratively together. The town managers, the town administrators, I should say, the boards of selectmen, the finance committees. They're very collegiate. They want to solve this crisis. They want to make it work for the taxpayer. So I'd say yes, we have good leadership. It's a difficult job. I mean, every year there's seats that are open. If anybody thinks they can do better than somebody who's sitting, by all means, come and run to be on the Board of Selectmen. Come and run to be on the school committee. Talk to the moderator. The moderator in both towns is the appointing authority for the finance committee. If you feel that you have some sort of a gift to give, some sort of education that you can bring in and help solve these problems, by all means, ladies and gentlemen, that is the system in place. Run to be an elected official, or talk to your town moderator and say, hey, I'm here. I'll volunteer to be on the finance committee. They will be glad to have you. And there are several other committees that have been brought forward that are committees, and even if you don't want to get into that particularly, and I know we're talking about a numbers show, there are all kinds of other committees that are available in town that are appointed, you know.
But they're seeking members.
Exactly. You see it all the time. The town is using
Hanson selectmen are always make sure at the beginning of their meetings they will give, hey, these are the boards. They're looking for members. Please get involved if you're interested.
Well, the same thing, Kevin, and it's funny that you should mention that because I was just going to bring it up. I go to a selectmen's meeting to give a report. There's 4 people in the audience, and 2 of them are one's from Hanson Express and one's from another paper, and 2 or 3 of them, unless there's a big article. Well, there is a big article at every single meeting. It's called the budget. And if you want to talk about it year-round, we've started to do that at school committee meetings. In December, we were doing budget. We just did one in January. We're going to continue throughout the year, letting everyone know where the budget is, how much it's increased or how much it's decreased, although I've never seen it decrease, because of increased costs. I mean, you have health insurance.
You keep up with those.
Yeah, you have hundreds of employees. I mean, we have 4,000 children in the district that we have to service. We have 6 buildings. And all of those things come at a cost.
What do you right now at this moment, as we're sitting here talking, what seems to be is going to be the most difficult part of the budget as we're moving forward? Is there a particular area that the school committee and town officials are looking at, going, this could be something that we need to discuss or get together and look at these numbers?
Well, every year the assessment to each town is the difficultest part. The last few years, it's come parts of it's like a pendulum. It depends on which town has added more people to the school district.
Sure.
Currently, under the current numbers of last year we're going on, Whitman pays 60% because of the
enrollment.
The number of students that are in the enrollment. And Hanson pays 40%. And then, and it even came up, we took numbers of how many children go to private school from each town. And somebody said, oh, it came out in the state numbers that Hanson has a bigger annual income, so they may send more kids to private school. It's not so. We did the numbers, and it came out exactly 60-40. 60% of the students from Whitman that go to private schools is 60% of them. 40% of them from Hanson, and the number's 100 and change. So it worked out almost identical. So the formula is correct. By the per pupil cost to the enrollment of the student is how much the town gets charged.
Sure.
And if that makes any sense to you. We take the number of students from Whitman, we take the total budget, divide by the number of students, you come up with a per pupil cost, and then you look at who has the greater number, and that's how you charge the town back to what they're part of the regional school budget.
And that's how you decide what the assessment percentage will be per community, so
well,
to speak.
the assessment at the end of
it's an annual assessment.
Exactly, it's annual.
Right.
And it depends. I mean, there's been a year where it was 0 to both towns. The bad side of a 0 assessment is it doesn't, when you have a Prop 2.5 override, keeping you to Prop 2.5, the next few years when you have a 0, it doesn't increase the budget as much as the budget's increasing itself.
And just to let folks know who are tuned in, the past couple of programs, we do tend to run a little bit longer. Normally we try to keep them within a 30-minute. This, we're probably going to go a minute or 2 over in regards, because we are getting into kind of the meat and potatoes of the particular issue here. I want to take a look real quick, and this is before we wrap up. Social media. How does social media play a role when it comes to disseminating information to the public, whether it's sharing it about an override, how the process is going? Is it something that hurts? hurts the process, or is it something that's helpful to the process?
Well, I think if you took 10 people and you asked them that same question, 5 would say it hurts and 5 would say it helps, because it's like I said, it's a double-edged sword. It depends on who wants to see the numbers. It's kind of like banking. You only get out of the bank what you put into the bank.
Correct.
So lots of times social media helps. Lots of times social media hurts, because it goes back to nobody knows what they're doing, and you shouldn't do this and you shouldn't do that, on facts that aren't known to be in effect. But I think everybody should have an opinion. I don't think it should be, if you're a taxpayer, speak up. Come to town meeting. Come to school committee meetings. Come to selectmen's meetings. These people you will find that are running these boards are all volunteers, and they donate tremendous amounts of times. And
It's almost like a full-time job. Another full-time job, right?
Well, they spend a lot of time. I know what it takes to do it, and I know I have 9 other members, and they all put in their time. And God knows I've seen plenty of boards of selectmen meetings at night when everybody else is home and it's freezing cold, such as tonight. I think Whitman and Hanson both have selectmen's meetings, and these people are there. They're putting their time in, trying to make the right decisions. And are they right every time? Absolutely, no way. None of us are right every time. But they're doing the very best they can to try and help the town move along.
Anything I haven't asked you during our general conversation, whether it's about the school budget, whether it's about your work or volunteering to be a school committee member, the chair of the school committee, or anything in regards to the budget, whether it's the 2020 budget or long-range forecasting, anything I haven't touched upon that you want to take a moment to talk about?
Long-range forecasting is difficult because the state is involved. I mean, we have long-range plans of what we'd like to do, whether it's repair to buildings or a functionality of what's going on in the district. But long-range planning is very difficult in these types of budget cycles because of the funding. And a lot of the funding is state funding. So it's difficult. I would say if somebody was watching and they really want to get into it, come to the meetings. Nobody's yelling at anybody. Everybody's trying to do the very best they can. I mean, I know that Jeff and George are having coffees. They're having meetings with Chris Jones, who's the principal, who they're meeting with people at night. They're having coffees. They're doing whatever they can to get the word out.
Community meetings.
Yeah, community meetings, trying to change the thought process that this is all, we're all in this together, I guess. They want people to understand this is your town. This is your school. If you want it to be the very best, we need you to participate. We need you to come, voice your opinion, and help us help you.
Thank you for coming in.
Thank you,
I kind of
Kevin, for
prematurely
having me.
shook your hand there because I thought you were finishing up, but this is an important program. We hope through this program that we can share some of the thoughts and some of the process of putting together budgets, what is going on financially with the two communities, with our educational system. If you have any input in regards to these series of programs that we are putting together, you can always send your questions or commentary to info@WHCA.tv, and it can be something that is part of future segments that we do with some of the stakeholders in Whitman and Hanson. Until next time, you've been watching By the Numbers.